I got a couple of requests recently to do a tutorial about set extension in Fusion, so here it is. Set extension can presumably mean a lot of different things. First of all, your difficulty can really vary from relatively easy to extremely complex depending on what kind of shot you are working on and what kind of extension you're looking at. So here I'm looking at a rather simple example. My camera isn't moving at all, which is very good. Otherwise you need to do match moving, and if it's getting too complex you need to start building your set in 3D. So today I'm working completely in 2D. That's the first simplification. And the second part, I want to place elements into the scene in places where they don't really interact with the foreground. So I want to place a house here on the side on the left and some wind turbine on the right, but I'm not looking into something which like my actor is sitting here in the middle, but he is not moving through the scene, so I don't need to rotoscope or key or anything like this. Of course, you can have set extension with green screen, you can have set extension where you do extensive rotoscoping and you do camera tracking and all that kind of stuff. So this part I leave outside for this tutorial. However, what I do want to talk about is how you can integrate photographic or video elements in the scene so that they look like they come from the same camera. So how can you get the color correction correct? How can you get some atmospheric effects? Stuff like this is what does come into play here. Okay, so that being said, let's get started. I am in Fusion Studio today. You can do the exact same steps also directly in DaVinci Resolve if you prefer. I have loaded some media here, which I'm also providing in the download package, so you can use this to follow along if you wish. Let me quickly show you what I have. I have here my video clip for the background, the guy sitting here, the grass is moving a little bit, but outside there's not too much going on. Here I have one picture, and I have already done some work ahead of time. I have already created an alpha channel. This you can do in Photoshop or in GIMP or in your preferred photo editing software. If you want, you could do this also inside of Fusion and use like the Polygon masks and mask out everything in Fusion, but in a photo editing software you may be a bit faster, at least I am. Now, so this I already provide together with the alpha channel, also in the download package if you use it. Then I have here a wind turbine. This is a video clip, so this does not have an alpha channel. We will deal with it directly in Fusion. And also some animals, so I have here some horses and a sheep, and they're all moving a little bit but not too much. And I want to bring all of this into this scene. So with this setup, let me get started, and let me start with the first element, the house. So I can directly merge it over and give it a rough position. I will add transform nodes here and not only the merge. And the reason why I prefer doing this here is that at the end you can easily like have all the transformations, color corrections and so on together, and everything like the final position goes into one merge. It's just a matter of organization. Of course you can use the transform in the merge as well, but this way I can reuse the element in its final position, and it's a bit cleaner to me. But again, otherwise you can do it how you prefer. Let's think about the size and orientation, and I want the grass should go out of the frame, and I want this like facing inwards. So I will flip it with the flip switch here, like this, and move it a bit over to the side. And now I need to do something here with the background, and I will mask out, if I look at the background, I will mask out this part here so that the house kind of sits here behind these stones, which are presumably from the river. So the house is supposed to be a bit behind this, but in front of this background wall. So let me quickly do this with a polygon mask, which I can attach to this merge afterwards. So let me take a polygon here. And for now I ignore this in front here. I'll just take care of the background very quickly. And I might accelerate these masking activities a little bit so that you're not getting bored while watching, but really it doesn't take more than a minute or two. and that's already more than enough. Let me connect it to the merge, and I need to invert it so that I'm masking out everything except this. Let me go back to the transform and move my house a bit, and this is roughly the idea that I have here. Okay, so I can think about the size, maybe a little bit bigger, although let's see the elements around, so these stones here and the grass here, yeah, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's already a bit too big, hard to say. But if it's hard to say, that also means it's hard to see, so it should be okay. Now here my mask wasn't big enough, let me quickly extend it. Okay, I can just go to the side, doesn't matter where it's here. Okay, now this guy here, this blade of grass, this may be a bit tricky. Let me have a look if we can extract it. And for this, if you see here, now it is moving, so I don't want to spend now time rotoscoping it, and keying might work up here, but below here, especially in this area, the contrast is not very high, so it will be tricky to get this keyed out if I really want to lift this up from the background. So yes, it's possible, but you know what? I think I'll just save some time and I'll just cut this part off. I'll just add a transform here at the end and just zoom in a little bit and throw this out. Okay, now that I look at the whole screen here, I think it can be a bit bigger. I want it a bit bigger. And let's see if this grass is causing any problem. Yes, so that's too far. So I make sure now that there's no overlap with the foreground elements. Now, if you can get this done, if you can get foreground elements extracted, that usually leads to more believable scenes all in all. So having like this kind of interaction is always great. Now we do have it here, of course, with the grass here. So this is in the foreground, this is behind, and there are mountains even behind. So it's always good if you have your new elements somehow sandwiched in between existing elements. That makes the whole scene usually more believable. But then again, if I wanted this grass here, for example, if I wanted something behind this, you see here the contrast is extremely bad here, so it probably means you would have to do some painting job or some rotoscoping, and this can be quite time consuming, and I definitely am not willing to do this for a tutorial, so I leave it like this. Now that I have the placement in the scene, let me see how I can do some color correction and integrate this a bit better. Now typically you would go and compare the shadows, the black points and the white points first, and see that the overall color range matches, and then think about, you know, gray values and so on. See if the white balance is correct compared to your background, everything in relationship to your background, right? So now in this image, if I look at it here, I don't really have points which are supposed to be completely white. I don't have sky or so. I do have some white, but these might be light gray, like these frames, or well, there's maybe some flowers here, something. So I can look at this, and I can, if I want, I can, for example, turn on here the histogram or waveforms. I can do this on both the images and see how it looks like. Now here, of course, due to the sky, I see the brightest points are like around 90 or so. I see it in the waveform, or you can sample areas and see below. So you can do this like a bit scientifically, but since we don't really have dominant major points which are either white or black, this will be a bit difficult and maybe not the most important part. Here I just see that the feeling overall matches. So because here it's an overcast day and I don't have strong shadows, I don't have strong contrasts, I want to reduce it a bit here as well. So let me add a color corrector first after my media in here or loader node, and I just add a general color corrector and bring that into the view, or let me bring it into the view on the left, and on the right I want to see it in the full scene. So here we have the full scene, and here after the color corrector node. And now I can bring the shadows maybe a bit up, so I don't have too strong shadows here in the doorways. Now they're not really strong, but I can maybe just bring the gamma here up in the shadow a little bit, not too much. And in the highlights, maybe bring it a bit down to make everything a bit flatter for an overcast day. I might also, because if it's overcast, you don't have very vibrant colors, so maybe it's okay to reduce the saturation a bit. Let me do that overall on the master here, just a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I think this looks more like in the overall scene, that it's not like the strong red. So maybe overall that might be okay. Now one thing which is definitely a bit off is the grass here, because the grass in the original picture is like fresh green and here it's beige brown. Now this, let me just add another tool here and let me use the hue curves here. And for the grass, I just want to narrowly select the hue range or color range of the grass and try to change that. So in the hue curves, I can bring them in here on the left. I can sample the green tone from here. You can sample it. And you see this little triangle here, which is the area where I've sampled. Now in the tool right now it's saturation, which is turned on. Let me turn on hue and do that again. So here we have this little triangle, and this should be the color for the grass. And let's see if I bring this just down, what happens. Yeah, you see that it gets towards beige brown. And we haven't maybe not selected all of it, so you can decide here the range of values that you want to manipulate. So maybe widen this a bit, or even here bring these points a bit to the side. So this is basically like a polyline. You have these spline handles here where you can decide how narrow and how strong it should be. Maybe it's too much, then you can bring it up again. If you want more, you bring it even further. So you can decide on the color depending how far I go, and bring it a bit down to maybe still a bit green, beige. Let's see how it's together with the rest. And if I have selected everything, yeah. Now I don't want it to be red. It's always easy to do too much at the end. Yeah, so maybe this is okay. Doesn't need to be exact the same. You also have different green and beige and brown tones here. As long as it somehow fits into that range and sits a bit behind, I think that's okay. Another thing always to watch out for is sharpness. Let's see how that looks like. If I see the grass here, it's a bit blurry, and let me actually play the clip, but I don't see much movement. That's okay from the grass. And here that seems to be okay. So sometimes you have to blur things a little bit. You don't want the background to be sharper than the foreground. So, and we are going back here. So given that there's no movement, I think we don't need, let's see up here. Now these edges here, maybe they are maybe a bit sharp compared to what we have in the original. Okay, so maybe I want to add a tiny little bit of blur, but definitely not much. So if I want to add blur, here I have it, and maybe that's already, maybe 1 pixel is already it, and not more. How does it look overall? If I go left, right, yeah. I have the color, I have a little bit of blur. Now what I should probably add is a bit of atmospheric effects. Fog and so on always helps make things glue together and feel things together, and especially here in this scene you see that here at the end everything vanishes in the fog, so I want a bit here in front as well. And I stay for this in 2D and make it very simple and just add a fast noise to it. Where do I do this? I think I can just add it directly after the color correction. So first I see that it's as good as it can get before I start obscuring things, and then I add the fog on top. Let me add a merge, and now the tool is called Fast Noise. Fast Noise, which can be used for 100 of different things. And I merge it in directly. Let me organize this a little bit. Since my area here is small, if I show you everything big in the screen, you see it's already on it, and let me show you on the left side, and it's everywhere irrespective of transparency here. And this I can change directly in the merge. I just change the operator from over to a top, which means place it on top without changing additional transparency. So put it into the masked out area. And this is the start. Then you can, in the fast noise, you can control the detail here, and you see, like, if you don't want it equal, you can get some detail, or you can use the scale parameter. Now we want it blurry, right? So blurry is good, but a bit of variation is also nice, so that it looks not too, like, doesn't look like just a white plane, but there's a bit of variation. With the seeth rate here, you can animate it. Now there we have to be careful now, because it might quickly get too fast. But if I play it like this, you see hardly anything, so maybe it can be more. But very quickly it gets into flickering if you do too much. Okay, this is probably already too much, because it should just be like a tiny little bit of hardly noticeable movement maybe would be nice, but not like animated noise. So just barely noticeable. Yeah, it changes, but during normal playback you don't really see how it changes, so I think that's okay, so it's not too quick. I can easily dial it in and out from the merge node, so I can just from the merge from 0 to, dial it in and out. Of course I can also color it and so on, but that I think is not necessary here. I think white is okay. It should pretty much match the background color. If not, I can actually make sure that it does, and I can sample it. So if I go into the fast noise and into the color here, color 1 is black, which is fully transparent, and color 2 is white, so the noise itself goes between white and transparent. And instead of white, I can also sample my background here. And if you want to sample more than one point, you can press Control, then you can sample like a rectangle area. So I can actually sample the real background color and use that for the noise as well. Okay, this should be good. Now what is obviously not good is this harsh line here. So let me mask it out with the Polygon Mask, and I need to do that here on this merge node. I bring it into the left viewer, and on the right I can see the effect of the mask. If I, let me first, so I think that the question is what is in the foreground, what is in the background, right? So I think that the front area here, this should be in the foreground, and then towards the end I want this all in the background, like this, and the top of course. if I attach this mask, then I see now hard mask here, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but once I give it a soft edge and maybe a bit more, perhaps bring it up a little bit, then we should start to see something. And now let me check what happens here afterwards. I still have a transform here and then a merge here, and something went wrong on the way, and I think the transform here transforms the mask. So sometimes you have these effects that through multiple merges and transforms, somewhere an alpha channel doesn't, or the mask doesn't get applied correctly. And what I can do here is just click on flatten transform. That should do it. Yeah, so now the mask is actually being applied right away, and then afterwards the image transformations run correctly. So this should be okay. Again, I can use the merge here to control how much I want. I don't think I want that much. Maybe just a little bit of fog, so it shouldn't be as much as in the background, but also still noticeable. Okay, this was my first element. The second one will work a bit differently. So I now have a video which I want to bring in, and this time I want to leverage the fact that this is also filmed against gray sky. So my hope is that I can, without too much masking, and definitely there's no keying or rotoscoping here. Keying won't really work because, you know, this is white, everything is white, so that will be very difficult. But still, I think I can bring this one in. So let me directly merge the whole thing over, or let me first mask a little bit just to get started. So I will just take a circular mask basically to capture here the center of the rotating turbine. So that's all in, and give it some softness. I don't mind that there's a bit more here. This will be out of the frame at the end, I think. Now I do want to get a bit more down here. So when I add a second mask and disconnect it just for the lower area, and quickly, I don't care about this part, I'll just cut it off. It's a bit crude, but hopefully it will work. Now I do want to separate this, so I need a hard mask here, and let me just bring this up a bit into the area of the circular mask. And if I attach these two and bring the ellipse into the polygon and then everything together, then I have this cut out like this. Okay, let's bring it into the scene. I add, after my last node here, I add another merge, and again let me put a transform first and bring this in via a transform. So the transform goes into the merge, the turbine goes into the transform, and color obviously doesn't work yet. I want to bring it here on the side, and I think I want, if you think the wind is going into this direction, the grass is bending in this direction, so let me actually turn this and I'll just flip it. So now it's facing into the scene, which looks nicer anyways. So I want to place it somewhere here. Can go a bit out of frame, which is okay. Yeah. Okay, now first let me rotoscope out here the background, so that it's actually standing in the scene. Just a very quick mask for where the thing is standing. So now it's presumably standing behind the hill here. Is that working for the size? No, I hope so. Okay, and the second part now is here the color, this blue color cast. So let me see what we can do this time. I'll directly bring in the color corrector, And now let me show you one little trick. If you want to compare the curves in the background and in the foreground, in some of the color tools you can directly do that. In the color corrector you can do it. So what I can do here, the color corrector here has, it's now on the left, has the input from the turbine, and sorry, this is out of frame because of the transform before, so I should probably put it before the transform. Let me do that just like this. And if you want, you can put a second image for reference in. It has no immediate impact on the color correction, but it has impact on the usage. So you can go now into levels, and here now you see two curves. You see the curve, the brighter one from the foreground, and you see the reference curve gray behind, and you can switch between those two. Now I can use these levels directly, and I want to adjust the brightness via these levels. So just to show you a different way of doing the thing. You can of course also open up scopes like the waveform and then use brightness and contrast, or use the shadow, midtone and so on from the color corrector. But let's use it with the levels this time. So I want to bring down the, I want to bring up the brightness here and match the curves, especially towards the end, which I presume is the brightest area, the sky. So let me change here the range for the white point and match this. And on the right side we should see if it's working. Now this is the overall master setting, and then I can go into the individual channels. So for red, for example, we are a bit I can bring up individual channels as well. So hopefully the blue cast will go a bit away. So green is maybe already too much, so I can bring it down. Blue, I'm just looking here on the, here. Blue. Okay, so now I think the blue cast got mostly away. Down here I still have some problems. Is this bluish, or it might just be from the brightness? So in the upper area I have pretty good match, and even if I play it, you don't see the difference between the sky here and the sky over there. This is great, but here you do. So I think I should bring in another color corrector and change it, bring it the brightness up in the lower area but not in the higher area. And also this I can do with simple masks. So after this color corrector I just bring in a second one, and the second color corrector now I focus only on the lower area for now. When I adjust it, I look at it again in the final image, but I can bring it here in as well. So let's see how I can get rid of this. And I think I just need to increase the brightness overall. I might be able to increase the gain a little bit, but with this obviously you have to be very careful that you don't blow out the image. Let's have a look at the waveform as well. Yeah, so this is already going quite high, so careful with this. So maybe I go into the highlights and bring up the gamma just for the highlights. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, and I think this may be closer to it. Now it's a bit, I should actually not look here, I should look on this side, because I'm interested in this area. And you can twist and turn this, so it usually may take a little while. You can also change this waveform view to RGB, for example. Then you see these scopes. You can zoom in and out here. You can make it large, so maybe you want a big waveform monitor, or the curves or vector scope, or all these kind of things. So let me use that here. And actually let me look at the RGB again, just if I see some, no, So it's pretty much balanced. So I think it's just brightness, it's not the contrast. So let's go into the master again and bring the gamma up all in all. And I think this might do it here. Carefully, not too much. Okay, so in this case now I think it's pretty much there. You see one problem here, and this is in the transparent area something goes wrong. This is because I did not select pre-divide post-multiply. So usually you need to do this, otherwise your alpha channel gets also corrected. Or the color values in the transparent areas get corrected, and that you do not want. You want only you want the mask considered in the correction. So let me do that in both of the ones, just to be sure. So now I went too far, so I go back a bit. So this is basically just adjusting until you get it, and I might do a few more and go a bit back and forth, always check with the background until you really have it. Now I think I have it in the lower area, and in the upper area obviously not anymore, but there I had it before, so I can just add a mask again now, and let me just put I guess just a box would be enough. And this needs softness. And let's see, if I bring this down, I bring in the second color corrector, and somewhere here I need to shift. Let me see how soft this is. Yeah, it can be quite soft, I think. Maybe not that much. Again, you can try. Now the mask is just the quick solution. What you can also do is you can use a background image and paint a gradient from black to white, and then you can adjust this all along the way. So you can really fine-tune on a gradient how you want to dial it in from top to bottom. But with a soft mask, usually that's much faster, and oftentimes it's already enough. Now if I go back, I think if you look along the horizon, you see that here the white seems to match, here the white is matching, in the middle it's also fine, and I haven't blown out anything, so nothing is super white. So all in all, I think this works. Now there's one more thing. I had some grass here coming from the side. I still have it, but now it's cut off from the soft edge from this turbine, and maybe that's not even so bad, so potentially this could work. But I want to try one more thing. Maybe I can do a little trick and get better with this, and just instead of normal, let me just put darken here and see what happens. Now I definitely don't have any super white areas anymore, because my picture here is just darkening my previous sky. I still needed to do all the corrections for the blue tones and so on, so it's not that a different apply node could just save me. Well, sometimes it can, but in this case I really think it doesn't. So yeah, I needed to do the adjustments, make it fit as good as possible, but yeah, just using a different merge node here, going to darken, allowed me to have my turbine behind my grass here. Okay, so if you try it yourself, be prepared to spend more time with the wind turbine, because making this match really well is more complicated than with a house. With a house, I just said, oh, the weather is like this, so maybe a bit darker, maybe a bit brighter. But if you need to match something exactly like here, where I needed to match the sky and needed to bring the white tones perfectly in line, so this is definitely more challenging. Now I got this done. Let me now see if I can bring in the animals just for fun. And there again we have a different technique. This time I use a little bit of keying to bring them in. Let me show you how. So let me look at the horses here. This is just a stock clip basically, and if I had filmed it I would probably do some things different here, but let's see how much we can get out of this clip. And to lift the horses up from the background, well, the grass is green, so let's say the horse is in front of a green screen and use the keyer. which one do I use? You can experiment with all of them. Let me just use the Ultra key here because it's fast, and it's fast to set up, I mean. And I think it will be already sufficient. Let me add this. And obviously don't expect a perfect result now. My goal here is not to get a perfect key. My goal, that will never work with something like this. But at the end, the horse will be like this big in the final image. So for that, hopefully I get something which is good enough. Let me first select the background color. I can just sample it, and actually I want to, let me just sample green here and see how that works. Yeah, so this is maybe already enough. Now there's a bit of stuff around. Perhaps I can use a bit from this separation to get it out. And yeah, don't look into too much detail. So this I probably cannot get out. Let's look at the other ones. How does it here? Okay, there's a branch in front of this one. I don't want to deal with that. And this one is, well, yeah, well, it's moving here, so the top part can obviously not be keyed. But I don't want to rotoscope, so I will just take this one. And here there's something there and something around, but the horse will also be again on grass afterwards, so I hope that these patches here are not a big problem. Now they are not super clean, they are a bit jittery, but still at the end everything will be very small, so I hope that's fine. Let me put a mask around it. And let me just go relatively tight. Now this I know I will not get. How much does the horse move? Is that okay? Let me make it a bit bigger and a bit more here. I'm trying to get as much background away as possible without cutting into it. Okay, so for any foreground this is useless, but for the background let me invert it, invert the mask and add it as a garbage mask. So here, garbage matte. So, and then this is one peculiar thing about the Ultra key here. It doesn't apply the garbage matte automatically. You need to go somewhere in the settings and do post multiply image. Then the garbage matte gets directly applied from the keyer. So garbage matte applied. Let's bring the horse in. And I add another merge here. Bring it down here. Let me space out things a little bit. My flow doesn't look very clean. I think I will clean it up before I give you the solution file at the end. But just to follow along right now, it should be fine. And I bring in another transform here just to separate it. And where do I want it? I think I want it somewhere here because I need background. I can't put it like against the sky because then we will see the problems. So I want to see it against background. Scale it down. And let me see like this. Maybe is the size correct? Sorry. And yeah, okay, so you do see a little bit of problems here and underneath, so that's definitely not ideal. And maybe there's still a bit that can be fixed with the shadow here, although maybe it can have a little bit of shadow at the end in the final scene. Also the size. Okay, so if I just put it over some area of grass which is a bit browner, then I guess I'm already getting a bit better. And then here I think I went a bit overboard with the matte separation. No, that's maybe fine, or maybe I can do even more. Okay, so if I spend another 5 to 10 minutes, I can probably get it a bit better. But actually, there's even one more thing which happens here, because it's far in the background. And if I look into the image here, if I look at the grass, I cannot discern the grass actually. It's that far back and that blurred, but the horse looks relatively, I can still see the hair from the horse, so I think I need to blur it anyways, and this will again cover up some of my keying problems that I inevitably have here. So let me add a blur after this. Sorry, let me add the blur maybe here after the keyer and bring it up a bit, not that far. Auto proxy should be off. Too much. Okay, maybe. So again, that's a judgment call. But judging from the grass left and right, maybe this could be okay. And with this, I think I don't really see the problems anymore. What I do see here could be part of the grass anyways. So here, if you know it, you know where it is, but you don't see it anymore. Okay, I will leave it at this. If you like, you can add the sheep as well. It just needs, again, a key, same thing as with the horse. I can use the ultra keyer and then blur a little bit, make it small, put it in the background, and it will hopefully work. And then a bit of color correction here and there, both for the horse, for the sheep, so on, that it looks like it belongs into the scene, and then that's already it. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was mostly about color correction here. We didn't need match moving, we didn't need to rotoscope the actor, so that's the part which kept things simple. Otherwise things can get exponentially more complicated. I am thinking about doing something maybe with a moving camera, or maybe with some 3D elements, probably not everything at once, but something I think I can come up with over the next weeks. Let's see. And if you do enjoy this, let me know in the comments what you think, and click like and subscribe, and see you next week. Thanks for watching.